that many, I'm surprised. And how many people are using Java as opposed to some other language, PHP? I mean, this is really a Java problem. Are people using scripting languages or strictly pure Java? Anybody using scripting languages besides Java? Predominantly, 3 people? Okay. Just raise your hands, how many people are using more than 10 JVMs to run their application, 10 JVM instances in their operating environment? So 10, 20% of the crowd, okay. And what's average heap size over 2 gig? Anyone? You can smile. And how many people here are doing user experience monitoring? And that is someone interacting with your system and you know how the application is performing at the desktop for that user. Okay, a couple folks. And how many people are using any tools to detect anomalies in their Java applications other than reading the log files? Okay, a few people. Okay, so I'll just go through this quickly and talk about a tool that we're using. It is a commercial tool. I am going to talk about some other open source tools. This is the one we like. I'll tell you why we like it, and you can decide whether you're interested. So, here at BNY Mellon, we're all about the user experience. We need to understand how our applications are behaving in front of the user at their desktop. It could be in Singapore, it could be in Europe, it could be somewhere in the US. We need to understand, is it browser, mobile, who's accessing our systems. That's important from a security perspective as well as a performance perspective. We need to see transaction level granularity. People call us all the time, I'm user XYZ, why is my transaction slow? And there's so many different reasons it could be slow. We need to have the ability to see that individual transaction. We need to see it in real time because they're usually on the phone. We need to understand all the components in the transaction path. We have global data centers. We've got one in Tennessee, we've got one in New Jersey. Got lots of fat pipes between them. Lots of components, mainframes, databases, web servers, app servers. A lot of pieces to break, and it's not very easy to figure out which one it is that's broken. And then finally, later on, we want to look at our system and say, geez, who's using our systems? What features are they using? What do they like? What do they don't like? Not just from like a Gomez type viewpoint where you're monitoring what's coming in for the web traffic, but you also want to see a little more detail in some cases. So we have a lot of JVMs and we need to watch them. So we have over 4,000 JVMs in production. It's a little challenging to understand what's going on with those JVMs. And it's the one you're not watching that usually has a problem. So one of the challenges you often hear in production JVM monitoring, what's the overhead on my JVM? I can't run that thing in production, it will drive my JVM down. Can I get transaction granularity, or are you just going to tell me what the average or worst transaction or anything like that is? And can I go back later and look at it? Will you let me do historical drill down analysis? And historically, the tools have not been that good. They either operate on an individual JVM or they perform very poorly, or they don't store data, or they just store it in log files you have to go back and pour over in excruciating detail. So we use a commercial product named Dynatrace, recently bought by CompuWare. We have it running in our production environment, 2,000 JVMs, and we're getting ready to scale it more. You can put an agent on the browser. It's a zero footprint injection. It's injected at the web server and sent out to the client. It will send telemetry back to the server so you can correlate JavaScript errors and other sorts of behavior on the desktop, correlate it with the back-end transactions, and get a complete end-to-end user experience using one tool, and it's all stored and you can look at it later. So it's in a lot of ways it's similar to like a Firebug or something like that, except you can correlate all that data with everything that's happening in your data center, including database transactions. We can also stitch together requests that go across multiple JVMs, so if you're calling a lot of different services, you can see hop to hop one end to the other, how it's performing, what's bad, what's good. A database query that's doing the table scan, but only every 10th time. That's all capturable using this tool. You can also export the data. You can customize it by extracting any parameter, any callable value in a method. You can store it out to the database as well as things like HTTP headers, and you can dashboard them. So we do things like pulling the user principal out of the header and then dashboarding by user ID. So if somebody calls on the phone, I can look and say that's his transaction. And he's had 3 of them that were slow in the last hour out of 100. And finally, this is all stored in a large database that we can also export to a big data repository so we can do correlation and data analysis of that infrastructure. Just an example, so some of the dashboarding, so this is actually dashboarding of about 500 JVMs here. Each of those little blotches is performance of individual groups of transactions. So like the reds are all the slow ones, the greens are all the good ones, so green's good. Over on the left, you can see there's more red than green. It's a little hard to tell, but that's actually about a 5 to 8% slow transaction rate, and there's about, each one of those bars is about 5 or 10,000 transactions in a 5-minute period, so it's a pretty significant user impact. What was happening, and this was actually a couple of years ago, is we had all the JVMs set to client mode, and so they were thrashing on GC. We were able to go in with the tool, isolate that to specific JVMs. And you can see in the little dip in the middle, we actually switched to the other data center, changed the database parameters, restarted the JVMs, and switched back, and you can see the positive impact on user performance. So this is the kind of thing we love about this tool. You can run it in real time in production. You can actually go in and change the instrumentation in production without restarting the JVM in most cases, so it's really pretty impressive. This is another dashboard, yes? The question, does it work with with only certain JVMs? Does it work with every JVM we've tried it on? We've tried it successfully on WebSphere JDK 1.4, which we still have running in production. And we've also tried it, have it running in WebSphere on the mainframe, under Linux VM. We have it running on Java, various versions of the Java JVM. Some Java JVM works on anything. Slightly different behavior. It also works on .NET CLRs. This is another dashboard. This dashboard is giving me data for 1,800 Java JVMs. It doesn't look that great, but it's really a pretty informative dashboard. It gives me transaction volumes, which is those little jaggy green bars here. It gives me overall health of all the transactions. So this is for a 12-hour period, probably about 700,000 Java requests. I can see how many of them fast, slow, etc. This gives me parameters like how much of the transaction time was devoted to GCs, so I can really, and then if I see a bump here, I can drill down and see every transaction that was impacted by GC within that time period. So it's both super high level roll up as well as extremely detailed granularity. It's complete end-to-end drill down. So just an example of production use cases. So, given our environment with a couple of thousand JVMs, it's definitely target practice to try to figure out where you're going. We found that our #1 best indicator to figure out to watch, to alert on, is high thread counts. Usually, if a JVM is having a problem for any reason, bad code, dependent resource, whatever, it almost always shows up first as a high thread count in the JVM. So that's like our #1 alert. From there, you can drill down. You can see if it's because GC, or if it's because a particular memory region, new gen, old gen. The tool allows you to look at all the memory regions individually and see if you have bottlenecks on, say, for example, your tenure generation. It will allow you to drill down by exception, so you can say, it'll show me all the 500s and see all the transactions associated with that. End to end, you can do thread dumps interactively from the tool for any JVM. You can look for API hotspots. You can also drill down to database transactions and see if a user calls, I can look and find their transaction, drill down to that database query, and show the DBA, why are you doing a 3-level join on this query, with a table scan. I mean, it's really that detailed. So as I mentioned before, it's not a free tool. There are alternatives and things you can use. instead. So there is a free edition, the Ajax edition, that's gives you something similar to Firebug type functionality on the desktop. Sun also provides some JProfiling tools that you can use to do some pretty nice drill downs on the heap memory, but it's really only on one JVM, not across JVMs. A lot of these don't work in production very well. Your mileage may vary. One of the things that we're looking at is, this is just Java and .NET. There's lots of other pieces. So we have a whole universe of tools that we use to do layer 2 through layer 7 correlation across our whole data center. But this tool really helps us hone in on specific issues that are related to Java applications. There's other tools out there. There's competitors, HTBMC, Computer Associates, Uptier, AppDynamics. There's also things you can use to look at visibility from the desktop and see how your application is performing on the net, Gomez and Keynote, and there's some other ones as well. So that's my time. Does anybody have any questions about Java performance monitoring or this tool?
So with regards to, you talked about table space scan, things like that. Do you know if it supports any non-relational databases? For example?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you can use this tool to monitor your Hadoop infrastructure. And that's actually one of the things that we're going to be using it for. And specifically, it has specific hooks in the monitoring agents to give you telemetry on Hadoop MapReduce processing.
We had a gentleman from 10 years telling us about MongoDB.
Anything that's Java it supports, as well as any resource that's invoked from Java. So for example, we use this tool to monitor our MQ infrastructure. So anywhere you do the call out from MQ, it tells you the queue and the performance. So you can't see what's happening on the other end of the request, but you can see the performance and various other attributes.
How did you go about testing this or gaining confidence before putting it into production?
We had some painful events in our production environment, and the pain of that was greater than the pain of rolling the dice and putting a monitoring tool in production. I mean, we certainly tested it in our test environments, but we didn't. It performed well in our test environments, and at some point it's like, okay, let's turn it on. And we turned it on, and it worked really well, so we left it on. The question is, what's the pricing model? You pretty much have to talk to the vendor. As you can imagine, we don't pay the list price for this, but there's a lot of different prices depending on what you purchase. And I think for individual developer use, I believe an individual developer license is actually free or fairly inexpensive. I think when you start creating servers and adding instances, that's where it gets expensive. And I think they have cloud-based versions of this too, and I'm not sure that's priced. So like Amazon Cloud, I think they have an instance. Yes?
Do you have any numbers on the performance impact?
But we've never profiled it. I mean, honestly, we've never detected it. I've never had a case where we turn this tool on and somebody says, what did you do to my JVM? It's really not.
Do you think it's microseconds or milliseconds? Or?
It's, the claimed, the published is 2 to 5%. They claim less than 5%, but honestly, I've never, it's not appreciable enough that we've bothered to measure it.
Just one of my question, out of the VMs you're monitoring now, how many of those are low latency trading?
We don't use Java for low latency trading, and we actually don't have a lot of applicability. There's a specific division of BNY Mellon that does low latency trading, and I suspect they're probably doing C code. But we don't, it may work for that, it may not, we don't use it for that.
I like your tool very much, like the charts what you exposed was very good. I just want to know that how your notification works. If something goes wrong, does it send email with notify
the question is, how does it notify? You can notify on essentially anything. You can dashboard. You go in, you basically go in and set up an alert and a threshold. You can email, you can send SNMP. You can do anything from there really. Other questions? I think my time is up, and we'll get to the star speaker. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a short break and without this period now to do announcements, so if anyone wants to make an announcement. We also want our gracious host, BNY to make have a few words before our main speaker. And so if anyone has an announcement to make, I'll start off. I have an announcement about a hackathon happening. AT&T has a mobile app hackathon targeting veterans. Even if you're not a veteran and you have an application that can help their community. This Friday and Saturday, it's on 15th and Fifth Avenue. Just Google AT&T mobile app hackathon. Any other announcements? Please feel free to stand up.
We're trying to start a job youth group on Long Island, so if any of you work in the city and live on Long Island, our next meeting is, I think it's August 14th. We don't have a location yet, but just for Meetup, we'll have Long Island Job Youth Group, and you can find it.
Anyone else?
Yes. I have some Jolly Rolls available, so you can come and talk to me afterwards.
Okay, anyone else? And again, the great thing about Java user groups, it's not just to hear great talks, it's also to network. So when you get a chance, maybe this break, or maybe right afterwards, after our main speaker. Oh, sorry. You want to make an announcement?
I do, just a quick one. I also have some Java roles, but I'm here also because I do Java
And also, everyone, my name is Mike Biederman. I work with BNY Mellon, and I'm the Global Head of Technology Recruiting. And just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. This is the first meetup that we've done, and we were all anxious to see you here tonight, so thanks for coming. You might not know, BNY has been around for over 200 years, so we've had a long, successful career. We were actually the first company that was traded on the New York Stock Exchange. With that in mind, we do have a large transformation initiative happening within technology. Not that our technology is that old, but we do have a large initiative that leverages a lot of Java technologies. We actually have over 500 openings currently in technology. So if you're interested, my name is Mike Biederman, and I'll be sending out a follow-up to the group after the meeting. Yes, it is. Exactly.
Thank you
All right, thank you.
So if you want to grab still some more pizza, we're going to take like a 5-minute break while our next presenter sets up. So we don't lose all the business now. And be ready to be back.